2 years later, 24,000 kilometers on the odometer. I've been with this bike now all around South Africa, Eastern Cape, Western Cape. And this is a short, extended review of the bike. Well, as with all bad things, let's start with the cons. First thing I gotta mention, it's an Austrian manufacturer, KTM, not German, so please don't get us confused. My first gripe when I got her, build quality. This starts with the airbox that plagued the 2013 models, all the way to the plastics. And there are a lot of plastics on this bike. First gripe was this one. It doesn't stay in place, neither does the other one, so could definitely been improved upon. The headlight is very weak. That had to be changed out to a better globe. The oil change procedure, I mean, really, who thought that out? But never mind. Before the first 1,000 kilometer service, this engine had an oil leak on the other side, but that was fixed under maintenance. Partly due to the electronics, I got a lot of error messages such as cornering ABS faulty or the front brake switch faulty or front brake sensor, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it was sporadic. Ever so often this bike would tell me your CABS has failed. Dealer changed the switch or sensor, that was gone. But then the front brake switch, that plagued it at least until the first 15,000 kilometers. It went into the dealership 4 times. First time, there was nothing wrong. They couldn't find any error messages. So, okay, maybe I was hallucinating again, as it happens with old age. Second time, luckily it happened by the dealer, and they said, okay, no problem. They took it apart, changed the switches that govern the brakes. I don't know, they fixed it apparently. Got it, no problems anymore. 500 kilometers later, same thing happens again. This time they replaced the switch. Again. Made in China, made in Thailand, who the hell knows. Got it back from the dealer. As I drove out, it happened again. They took it straight back, put another switch in. They said maybe the new switch was faulty. Excuse me? Okay, never mind. Look, build quality on these bikes, there's a reason you don't buy a bike the first year it is released. Early adopter syndrome, there is crap that they still need to figure out, especially if it's a new model range, which is probably a reason why the new or current 1090 is so good, because it's based off this. All the crap they fixed, they translated into the next one, so hopefully it helps. Another con, the engine throws a lot of heat. I took the catalyst out and ceramic coated the headers. Helped so much. So if that's a problem for you, get that done. If it's allowed to cut out the catalyst, but that's up to you. Otherwise, in build quality, look, it's a lot of plastic. I mean, the bracket in here broke, that had to be fixed. This apparently is a feature. There are a few little niggles that annoy me, personally. For example, your coolant level is red here, but if you need to top it up, you need to remove this panel. Yeah. Ease of use, no. Oil can easily be changed. The air filter, you need to take out all these panels. And that's 1, 2, 3, then the tank, which if it's full, it's about 23 liters, call it 25 kilos you got to get over there. It's more of a 2-man job. But again, the original handguards, it's just a layer of plastic, a windshield, that's all. Those don't last, so put something solid on there. Another con, the engine has got a bit of a dead spot. Between 3.5 to 4,800 RPMs. The motor just doesn't know what it's trying to do. It's lackluster. It's a dead zone. And I think partially it's because the front sprocket is a 17, which would help with the Euro emissions thing, but it should ideally have a 16 tooth in the front. Or instead of a 42, put a 45 on it. Same thing. That's what I'll be doing. Other than that, look, the bike also doesn't come with a bash plate. When I got her, I got that free of charge, plus the handlebar risers and a tank bag, as well as the Acropovich exhaust. Look, for something that's touted as a very capable off-road adventure bike, I would expect them to at least go full house and not like the British and say everything is optional or an add-on. It's not really what you want. What about the pros? If it's so bad, why do I keep her? Because this thing makes me smile. It's a sport bike in adventure garb. Yes, another con, it's heavy, 240, 250 kilos with all the modifications. But, ladies and gentlemen, this thing will take you where you want to go. Really, it will take you where you want to go. It's designed for that. You've got an engine that will blast from 0 to 200 and no problem at all in sport mode. It will bring the front wheel up if you're too aggressive. It will even bunny hop if you only leave it in street mode. So it's completely different every time you put a different setting on. Off-road, very capable. I must say the front suspension could be improved upon. It tends to dive a lot, doesn't absorb as much, but I think also the wheel is a bit heavy for it. The rear spring, according to KTM, is actually designed for a rider for 80-85 kilos. It's not bad. Look, you can load it up, you can go 2 up and it'll survive it. So you don't need to spend the 45,000 from Touratech for an upgrade. But bear that in mind, okay? Another pro is it's easy to live with. Fuel consumption can go as low as 5.8. I have never found 5.8 on the display. I usually find 6.8 or 7 liters per 100. And Donald Trump is my hero because he says I'm not killing the planet with it. I'm praising Donald Trump. Jesus, how old have I gotten? What else? I think this is a mixture now. It's no longer just pros, cons. Engine is a bit vibey. For males, your gooch will fall asleep on extended rides. But that's just the circumstance. If it happens, get off, have a break. You've been sitting too long in the saddle. Usually it takes about 2 hours for that to happen anyway. So live with it or harden up. Just get an erection every so often to get the blood flowing. You know, the usual stuff. Toolkit, well done KTM. This little toolkit you get with it has every tool you need to fix this bike. Okay, if you put additions on it, you need to include more tools. But contrary to the BMW 1200 GS, which doesn't even have the T-socket to get the bloody rear wheel off, this is really made for the fixer-upper or the wrenching type of guy. And coming to that, let's talk about service. Okay, air filter is a mission because you got to take the tank off. Oil can be done reasonably well. Chain oiling, also not a problem. Rear wheel removal, that's a little bit of a con because I don't know what KTM has thought, but getting this stuff off and on again is a huge pain in the ass because of the clearances are so tight. I know somebody who's taken a car jack and just widened the swing arm a little so it's easier. To each his own. Personally, I wouldn't deal with it. You live with it. It's your bike. Get to know it. You know, you get to know all the little tricks after a while. Oh, speaking of, or touching on, tires. I go through tires every 3,000 kilometers, the rear wheel especially, because my stress levels demand it. Tires for this bike, I can only recommend the Scorpion MT90. Alright, this thing, and the V-rated, not the S-rated bullshit. You want the 240 grade. If you're going to the track, these tires are perfect. These are my emergency stock tires. Okay, for road, I already said, Pirellis, MT90s. For off-road, perfect combo, but this is my opinion, TKC 80 front. This one has 2,000 kilometers on it and hardly worn, so this will last a long time. Rear, I swear by the Mitas EO7s. These things in mud, loose sand, they're absolutely perfect and they last a long time. So that's my personal opinion, best combo. But tires that you should not fit, or again, my opinion, are the Metzeler Karoo 3s. If you put those on your bike, you are asking for trouble. It is astonishing how little grip and how much they wallow and do their own thing on the bike. I had a Karoo 3 on the rear and there was no grip. If you were commuting in the wet, it slid. You couldn't even brake properly. The traction control was doing its disco thing for you. Avoid those, please. Something Heidenau K60 Scouts. Amazing tire on the front. It doesn't wallow as much. It's very hard wearing. I'm guessing you could get at least 10 to 12,000 kilometers out of it. The rear for the KTMs I wouldn't recommend because it's got a solid line in the middle. That's not going to give you a lot of traction off-road, as that goes. Also, these things, air them down to 2 bar, they'll work brilliantly. What other tires? The TKC 80, why isn't it on the rear? Because it only lasts 2,500 kilometers with my right hand. That's the truth. It's a great tire, but it doesn't last. So if you need to ride tar to get somewhere, like to Namibia, a TKC 80 is going to be half shot before you even get there. Avoid. Well, or use it at your displeasure. Up to you. I also tried the Mitas E10s, front and back. The rear lasts a lot longer than the TKC 80 and is equal to its performance. The front I wouldn't put on because it wasn't as good as this one. It went its own way sometimes. So, but that's my experience with tires. I forgot one gripe. Underneath the tank there's a cooling hose here. The tank rubs into it. And I'm guessing at 30,000 it will eventually wear and it will pop that hose with great ease. That's a design failure. Please take care of that. Put some protective lining over the pipe just to prevent that from happening. Coming to durability, these are still the original OEM brake rotors and pads, and they're hardly worn. So these things last a long time. You're dealing with Galfa and Brembo pads, very good quality. But again, I use the rear brake more often, so I already replaced that rotor and a fresh set of pads. To each his own. I also use the engine a lot for braking. Some say that's bad. To each his own. Personal pet peeve, if you haven't noticed it, it's an ongoing theme from previous videos, these fucking fuel taps. It's easy to break these, shear them off, and once that's off, you're screwed. You need to replace the entire unit. This is just pot metal. You can even turn them off if you want to be a practical joker with your cousins. Coming to a few comments of off-road. The seat is quite hard, so long-distance touring will be a pain, as I've mentioned, but very competent off-road. Only drawback is BMWs turn in easier or corner easier than this bike. On my recent training exercise with country tracks, the BMWs only had to go so much before they turned. This one, I needed to push at least that far over before she could do a tight turn on dirt. So just bear that in mind. Look, let's not kid ourselves. Big adventure bikes require a lot of experience and upper body strength when it falls on its side. This is not a beginner's bike. If you bought this as your first bike, your insurance is pretty high, I'm guessing. And the chance is that you are going to drop it. Make no mistake, I did. I paid for it in spare parts, manual labor, etc. But it was a learning experience. But again, you're also buying something that has got 6 processing cores, cornering ABS, adaptable ride modes. You are buying something that is supposed to make you a better rider. Nah, that's like saying you buy a paintball gun for $600 and you are the next pro. No. Look, if you are buying this bike, you should have at least 2 years or at least a year on a motorcycle. Maybe a small Enduro or MX bike, because if you're going on dirt, that will help you. This thing needs to be taken and tamed on the dirt. You cannot go willy-nilly. She will bite you in the ass. She will put you in hospital. But that's my opinion, again. What about using it as a commuter? Yeah, you can. Yeah, it really is possible. The handlebars are a little bit wider than the normal 1190 Adventure, but it's competent enough. I mean, fuel efficiency isn't great, and I'm guessing in town you're going to get 7 liters per 100. I mean, but if you're watching this video, you are in all likelihood also considering one of these bikes. And as they're not being manufactured anymore, or at least the dealer stock should have been depleted by now, January 2018, what do you have to look at? Well, first off, ask the guy, did you ever drop it? If he says no, walk away, he's lying, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. 2. Service history. While the South African dealers are okay, it's better to have some sort of service history from the dealer. If the guy serviced it himself, okay. If he was competent enough. Personally, I service this bike. I do an oil change every 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers or after every track day, because it'll put extreme stress on the oil, it'll break down faster, so rather change it. It's easy enough to do. Next question you should have for the owner, what happened to the airbox? Is this a 2013 model? If it is, that airbox must have been modded with some sort of unifilter or other aftermarket modification to prevent the dust from going into the intakes. Why is this required? Because a lot of 2013 models who had this issue sucked in dust and the bike refused to start. Why? Because there was so much grit in the intakes. It just blocked all the valves. It was shit. A lot of engines had to be repaired under warranty. Google it if you don't believe me. The 2015s are good, because 2013, 2014, they issued fixes, they did all that thing. You know. That being said, what else should you be looking at? Foot pegs, any scratches, any major damage. I mentioned the cooling pipe. If it's leaking coolant, well, you know where that is going. If the guy was impatient when mounting the rear wheel, have a look at these spacers. Are they badly worn? Because that was the first thing I noticed on my friend's bike, and the guy who had it previously was a real roughneck. This rubber seal was oval. Basically, dust could just get in next to the bearing and grind that away. Bad idea. Should have been fixed. Doesn't cost that much. But again, who's got the money, huh? If he's got an aftermarket exhaust system, check if he's taken out the baffles. If yes, ask him where are the originals and put them back in. You take these out, it becomes extremely noisy. Your neighbors will probably castrate you. Yeah, they will probably actually castrate you. The original OEM is also not a problem. Still sounds great. You can take the baffles out of that one. It's not as loud as the slip-ons, and it'll look good. If you have got an Acroprovage slip-on, you break this, it's 2,300 Rand. It's carbon fiber. This one I had replicated out of fiberglass. Hell of a lot cheaper at $800 a pop. Worth it. Heat-wise, the early models had not problems with heat, it's always been there, but there was no reflective material under the seat. In fact, some seats actually started singeing and burning if you were doing heavy traffic in hot weather. That's a bloody problem. Open up the seat, have a look. While you're doing that, check the battery. Is it leaking? These still come with sealed lead-acid batteries, not lithium-ion. That's too expensive. Check the toolkit as well. What's going on there? Is the toolkit there? Because that toolkit is actually pretty damn brilliant. Trying to replace all the tools for all these bolts by yourself is going to cost you a little bit. Have a look at the rims. If the guy says he's only ever been on-road, never off-road, have a look. Are there any smileys or heavy scratches on these wheels? They bend quite easily, and mine just got hammered out because it would no longer balance. Took it to the dealer, they did it at no charge. Easy. Obviously, if this engine is in good nick, have a look for oil leaks. If it was ridden off-road, oil will start to adhering to any leaks around the engine casing. You will see it. Also, get this, if you are test riding the bike, make sure it's bloody cold. This bike has got a little bit of an attitude when you turn her on. Always turn her on, let her idle for at least 10 seconds, allow all the oil to go through the engine, minor lubrication, and then only ride. If you start her up, rev it, and go, you're asking for this engine to fail you at one point or another. If your seller has got one of these bigger windscreens, ask if he's still got the original. In fact, if he's done any modifications to this bike, like bark busters, windscreen, handlebars, anything like that, ask him, do you still have the OEM gear? Because chances are what he did to his bike is not going to suit you. And it helps because if you've got the OEM stuff, you can sell off the extra gear if the seller hasn't done it already. One dangerous little issue, which can happen if the guy was an absolute hooligan, is that the frame can crack. Have a look around this area if there are any cracks, anything like that. I know of somebody, whose name I shall not mention, who took his bike to an enduro track and promptly cracked the frame with all the jumps. Tried explaining that to the dealer as a warranty job. Shit, you better kiss their backside for sure. Sprockets should be investigated. How bad is the wear? That's not bad. Because this is a high-powered sports bike, adventure bike, it's going to do a number on the chain if the guy was very abusive, the sprockets will wear faster, etc. Another thing you can check is here. Normally, the manual actually says you're supposed to see the links here. That's not the case with this, which means the chain slider is slowly but surely due for replacement. You're supposed to change this along with when you do the chain or the sprockets. It's a pain in the ass to do it without doing that. And there's a second one down here. If he's been maintaining the bike, this should be relatively clean, because this is where the gunk basically forms. It'll also form down here if he's over-oiled. And lastly, if the guy has serviced his bike himself, ask, what oil did you use, comrade? This bike needs 10W50 or 5W40 in cold climates. If he says he's used 10W40, this engine is high-powered. It needs 10W50. Change the oil ratio or specification at your own peril. I will not have anything to do with that. I'd rather trust the engineer. I mean, hey, they designed the oil and the... well, maybe the engineers don't know everything. Fuck it. One more issue. There's a chance, not this bolt, but the bolt holding the shock absorber can bend under stress. This was also a warranty issue with the bike. Again, it might not be that one, but it can happen. Do all the checks. I'm not going to go through it, what you should be looking for. I've given you enough pointers. Just take care. This is a machine that requires kid gloves, delicate care, and if you do that properly, she will always start. She will get you everywhere you want to go, and she will get you there with a smile on your face. You will get wrinkles around your mouth, not from that hobby, from riding this bike, I mean. But then comes the question, so what's next? I would probably consider the KTM 790 Adventure or Yamaha's K or T700, I think they're calling it, the new Tenere. When those come out, I'll test ride it. If I like them, I'll wait 1 year for them to fix their crap and whatever is wrong on those bikes, and then I will kiss her goodbye. But until then, we still have a lot of kilometers to go. let's get to it. Have a merry 2018.